Welcome, and now we start with the question number 26 to question number 43, which will be your match the following questions and the multiple select questions, multiple select options. So, question number 23 is match the buildings in group 1 with their architects in group 2. So, I'll basically write architects and here and group and their buildings here. So, first we have IMPI. His buildings are, the most famous one is Bank of China, Hong Kong, in Hong Kong. Then a few more of his buildings. He was obviously the architect behind the very famous Louvre Pyramid in Paris. He also was behind Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Museum of Islamic Arts in Doha. It helps knowing about at least 5 to 6 different buildings of the architects. Now we have Jean Nouvel. IMP is also a Pritzker Prize award winner. Jean Nouvel is also, and so you can also see the buildings and their examples and their pictures in my Pritzker Prize winner video. So for Jean Nouvel, we have Institute, du Monde Arabe, Paris, which is basically a museum of our Arab world. And one more we have, he has also worked on a museum which is called Louvre, but this is in Abu Dhabi. Also, One Central Park, Sydney. This is basically an apartment like residential project. Next we have Snøhetta. First one which was asked in this question also is Bibliotheca Alexandria. This is in Egypt basically, with Bibliotheca Alexandria. Then we have Oslo Opera House in Oslo, Norway. Then we have, he has also worked, which is a very a recent project, Europe's first underwater restaurant, which is known as Under. And this is also in Norway. Then we have Daniel Libeskind. He has also won the Pritzker Prize. You have, and this question, Jewish Museum in Berlin, has been asked many times also. Jewish Museum Berlin. Then we have One World Trade Center. And we also have Century Spire. So these were all the 4 answers to the 4 questions, but there was one more architect and I'm just gonna mention him also. That was Renzo Piano. Also Pritzker Prize award, His very famous work is the Center in Pompidou, the Shard, and New York Times building. Question number 27 is a numerical, so I'll do that when I do the numerical section. Now question number 29 is your AutoCAD question. So I will be doing that. 29 is your AutoCAD question, so I'll just be making a separate video on the AutoCAD questions over the years. Now question number 30. Question number 30 is match buildings in group 1 with their corresponding structural forms in group 2. So basically I'll just write the structure and architect and the structural form. So first one we have Hall of Nations. This was by architect Raj Rival, and this had an octahedral lattice structure. Next one we have Selvacow Church, Mumbai. Selvacow Church. Hall of Nations is in Delhi. This is in Mumbai. This was by Charles Courier. And this has a shell roof structure. Third one is State Trading Corporation Building, New Delhi. This is also by Raj Rival, and this has Viren real girders. There are lots of different structural forms and shapes and concepts which are used in different buildings throughout the history. Fourth one is Matri Mandir in Auroville. Architect is Mira Alfaso and Roger Anger. This is basically the famous Auroville structure, which is like this and this. So this is like the spherical structure, the famous. Question number 31, if you have the question paper, so that was identify the correct statement, and basically there were two or more incorrect statements, so this was marks to all. And in every, like in GATE question paper, almost every year there is a question where students get marks to all, so you should sometimes take a risk and also do these questions. Question number 32, we have match the terms with the description. So I'll just write the terms. Q1, this is basically cornerstone at angle of buildings. Cornerstone at angle of buildings. You can see the picture also. Please do go and see the pictures of these things. Stucco is basically plaster, like rough looking plaster. So it's like you have these things. This mandala, this is famous nowadays. Basically it's a geometric representation of the universe. geometrical patterns, you see mandalas everywhere right now. Then you have cupola, which is a small dome. So you can see how the questions are coming, that you have something from like this, you can see in history of architecture, and this you can see this is an art based question, this is like a construction industry based question, this is again a construction and your normal day-to-day knowledge based question. So you need to know all these small terms also. Now moving on to question number 33. It has architectural matched the architectural styles with their features. So first one we have West Asiatic. West Asiatic was basically Babylon, and Babylon had the most famous, I think, hanging gardens. Also this has the blue very tall doors, blue doors. Then we have Greek architecture, and what comes in Greek architecture? We have columns, we have orders and pediments. Orders and pediments. Then we have Byzantine architecture. In Byzantine architecture, we have studied this as in before also, arches and pendentives. This was also a question like in 2010. Then we have Japanese architecture, which is pagodas. We also have one more thing we had, which was flying buttresses. Like the question has that option also, flying buttresses. And we have studied this in before also, like previously also. This is a Gothic architecture example, like a feature of the Gothic architecture. Now question number 34. Gestalt's laws of visual perception do not relate to what? So Gestalt theory of visual perception. If you had like in, I think, first, second to third semesters, if you have theory of designs and things like that, you would have studied this, or maybe not like this whole thing, but you will understand the principles when I just mention it to you right now. So the first one was proximity, which basically states that proximity or continuity states that things which are closer together will be seen as belonging together. So I'll just mention what are the different principles. Then we have similarity, which is same that the things which share visual characteristics such as shape, size, color, texture, value, or orientation will be seen as belonging together. Then you have common fate. It's like a movement, so like some we also feel like if some things are kept close together, we see a pattern, like there's a movement. So basically that is common fate. Then we have good continuation. Good continuation means how we perceive things. So basically, if these are things, we are perceiving this as two lines being crossed and not like four lines meeting at a point. So that's just what good continuation states. Then we have closure. This is basically how we perceive, like for example, simple figures like a square. We would want this square to be closed, or we would want this circle to be closed, like it to be closed like this. So that's just what closure means. And then we have area and symmetry. Question number 35 is based on a numerical on your scale and map question, so I will do that in numerical section. Question number 36 is your AutoCAD problem, so I will do it there. We move now to question number 37. Match the eminent personalities with their books and statements. Again, a very important concept. So, first we have Kevin Lynch. And Kevin Lynch wrote Site Planning. If you had paid attention to your 5-year course or 4-year course, you must have heard about these books also. Then we have Ayn Rand, who wrote The Fountainhead. Again, a very famous book. Then we have Paul D. Sperringen, which basically wrote Urban Design, Architecture of Towns and Cities. Now we have E.F. Schumacher, which wrote Small is Beautiful. We have one more option, so I'll just mention it like this also. Edmund Bacon wrote the book Design of Cities. Now we move on to question number 38. Match the urban forms listed with the towns listed. So urban forms and towns. So we have seen this in 2010 question paper also. First we have New Delhi, which is of a radial urban planning, has been done in New Delhi. Then we have Washington DC. Grid-iron planning. Then we have Copenhagen, which was also a question in 2010 also, finger plan. We have Mumbai, which is linear. Linear also we had Stalingrad, I think. Just check it in the 2010 question paper. We also have one more city mentioned, which is Australian city of Canberra, Australian capital. And this is basically, it has varied amounts of geometrical shapes, such as hexagons and octagons. Now, question number 39 is your multiple select question type. Consider the following features. Number 1, length finely proportional to its width. Number 2, statues as silhouettes against the sky above cornice lines. Number 3, fountains signifying fine vintage points. And number 4, series of different shapes connected by traditional narrow streets, column screens or arches. The element of urban design which comprises the above is A. Vista, B. Piazza, C. Round Point, D. Bosque. So the answer here is Piazza, and I need you just learn it like you write Piazza, which is basically plaza. It's the another name for plaza, urban plaza, and then you can write all the points that are mentioned over here. So I'm not going to do that right now. Coming to question number 40. It's basically we have to match the name of the instrument and what it is used to calculate. So first we have hygrometer. We have seen a number of instruments previously in like this question paper also. So make sure you just write it all in one place for like easy revision. So hygrometer measures your relative humidity, and you have distrometer, which measures your precipitation. You also have anemometer, which basically measures wind velocity. Then you have manometer. Don't get confused with anemometer and manometer. A manometer measures your vapor pressure. We have one more thing, which is what instrument is used to measure solar radiation. So pyranometer is used. So pyranometer measures solar radiation. Question number 41 is related to your gardens and their elements. So I'll explain it a bit so that you just have all the information at one place. So first we have French gardens. Let's start first with Mughal gardens, which is like the most famous garden you must have studied. So Mughal gardens, basically these have symmetrical features, symmetrical layout, symmetrical or geometrical, whatever you want to call it. They have a charbagh concept over here, which means that if you have this as an area of a garden, this is divided into four parts, and this again one will be divided into continuous four parts, and that is your charbagh concept. This also has your water cascades, or basically water flowing in four cardinal directions. Cardinal direction is your north, south, east, west. So basically, if like this is like a garden, you have a charbagh concept, and the water keeps flowing over there. So this is all water flowing in four directions. The backdrop of like what was seen, if you're standing in the garden, what will you see behind it were usually forts and tombs, and this is also like entombment, called entombment. Now I'll just write some of the examples. This is a very like from gardens, because you have a very like limited, like Mughal gardens has only these features. So knowing these features and knowing the examples will make it easy for you to, whenever the question comes anything related to Mughal gardens, you will know because you know all these points. So first we have Shalimar Bagh in Kashmir. In Kashmir, we also have Nishad Garden in Srinagar. You also have the gardens of Taj Mahal. And if you remember from my previous video, I told that they had like 1 by 256 quadrants in like the gardens basically there. And also they have one more example, Mehtab Garden. And just to remind, like every single point this has been asked like in ISRO or DDA or in GATE previous year questions, so you can just understand like how important these like 10 lines are. So next we have Japanese garden. Japanese gardens are usually influenced by Zen Buddhism, so it has features of Zen Buddhism. It is basically of three types. So I'll just so one you have dry garden, then you have hill garden, and you have tea garden. Some of the things that are used in Japanese garden, because it's a very like a most often like you will find a dry garden which is also known as a Zen garden, and here white sand is used to resemble water. So obviously like dry gardens so no water, so white sand is used to resemble water, and rocks and mosses are used to resemble islands. Some of the features in Japanese gardens are that they have occult symmetry, they also have bridges, lots of bridges, and they also like have like zigzag bridges, so like bridges who go in this way and not in a straight way, because they feel like straight bridges means that our problems are walking with us, and if your zigzag bridges like problems or ghosts of the past are getting left behind. You also have stepping stones, which is a very big features of Japanese garden. Also stone lanterns. Like we have Vastu in Indian architecture, we have Feng Shui in Japanese architecture, which basically means wind plus water. This is like a design principle which is used in houses there. You also have bonsai, which is basically a miniature. It's a miniature plant, it's a miniature plant grown in a small pot, mimicking the large tree. So like you have bonsai of different trees available, and these are very small like plants, and like but they look like the actual trees. The very important example of Japanese gardens are Katsura Imperial Garden in Kyoto. Then we have English gardens. English gardens are basically called also like formal gardens. So formal and informal, formal will have like a more symmetrical outlook on life, and it will be like the hedges will be trimmed and cut and everything will look all alike. And so English garden, French gardens is an example of formal gardens, and like Japanese gardens or Japanese or Chinese gardens, they are examples of informal gardens. Like Mughal is also an example of formal garden. So English gardens have basically the features that they have lots of lakes. They also have ruins of Gothic and other classical bridges, classical temples, sorry, classical temples, which means this is like a recreation of classical temples has been done there. Uh, then we have sweeps of gently rolling lawns. So like the lawns are like this. Um, there's no steep steps. They're all just like a flowing variation. There's also one feature which is known as a haha wall. So what this haha wall means is that it is used to separate the grazing land from the garden. So you have a grazing land over here which goes like this, and then you have like this. So if you are going to stand here, for example, you're standing here, you have animals over here. This is a wall that was created, and this was known as the haha wall. And basically what happens, if you see it from afar, this line, like, it looks like it's an automatic, like it's like a continuous field. The continuous field is over here, so it looks continuous to the observer, but it's not, and it's considered like a haha wall is made to give the support and make it look continuous. Now examples of English gardens are Central Park in Manhattan, New York. We also saw this as a example of serial vision by Gordon Cullen in 2010 question paper. And also I'll just write it who has designed this. This has been designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, who is also known as father of American landscape. And so these, one more example, Kew Gardens in London. These also have all been asked multiple times in GATE and DDA and extra question paper. Kew Gardens in London, and this was by Lancelot Capability Brown. And this whole garden is situated in 121 hectares. Coming now to French gardens. French gardens are again formal gardens. So you will see a radial symmetrical layout. So radial layout, symmetrical sculptures, so sculptures and like statues and everything. So these are all symmetrical. And then you also have boulevards over here. And one of the most like famous examples is Gardens of Versailles or Versailles Garden in France. This has also been asked multiple times. This has been designed by André de Notre. This whole is situated in 15,000 hectares. This is basically a palace. Versailles architecture, Palace of Versailles is also like a very beautiful place. And yeah, so this is the example of French architecture, French garden. Then we have, at last we have Chinese gardens. So we have water bodies over here. We have bridges, like in Japanese architecture. We have zoomorphic forms. In Japanese architecture, and also in like Japanese gardens and Chinese gardens, you also have these features, like they don't have flowering plants all around. They have like a whole sort of a green theme is going on with it. So in like French garden or English garden, you will find flowers also, but you'll find in Chinese garden and Japanese gardens, you'll rarely find any flowers. They had a hierarchy of gates. So you need to cross like gates to go from one place to another. Just in Japanese, we had feng shui. Here we have shan shui, which basically translates to mountain plus water. It has hierarchy of courts also. Because these gardens were created like around a palace or around a fort, so like courts and gates are also present over there. One of the important examples of Chinese garden is in Forbidden City, Peking. It's an imperial garden, and it is also known as Gate of Heavenly Place. Coming to the next question. Question number 42 I'm not doing because there was something wrong with the question. So it also was like certain marks to all was assigned over here also. Now question number 43 is basically again match the following, match the elements with their corresponding type. So you have two things. You have street hardware and street furniture. This has been asked like these terms have been asked I think a couple of times in the previous questions, like from 2010 to 2020 it has been asked a couple of times. So what is basically street hardware? So these are installations which are installed to guide or manage. So they guide or manage the pedestrians or the cars. Pedestrian or cars. And street furniture is basically which can be used by the, like for example by the pedestrian for just a specific purpose. So this gives you a detection, this guides you, this manages you, but this is so, and but the furniture, in street furniture you make use of it for a specific use, you make use of this. It will be clear once I mention the examples. So for street hardware we have like traffic signal post, fire hydrants, traffic signs, lamp posts. This topic is a bit confusing. You can also study about this and like study more about this on the net. And coming to street furniture, for example, you have like landscape elements like planter beds, you have dustbins, benches, like letterbox. So you're using them for a very specific purpose. Your question number 44 and 45 are basically numerical based questions, so I'll do that in the numerical section. Question number 46 is a drawing based question, so it has different kinds of figures drawn and you have to name it. So you can do this on your own, you will understand this a bit more. You can just do this question on your own. And then in 47 you have the same thing but you have like different joints. So I'll just tell about that. So 47 question, 47th. This is your table joint. This is your tongue and groove joint. This is like welding in joints and welding steel structures. This joint right here, it's called butt joint. Then you have here, which is called rebated joint. And then question number 48 onwards, we have numericals. So I'll be solving that in the next video. So thank you.